Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here, welcome back to the railway and welcome to another review of a beautiful LMS Hornby Pacific. So today's loco is one of my absolute favourites. I think this particular engine I've only shown once before on the channel and it's an absolute beauty. So it's a Princess class from the LMS, Hornby of course. Lady Patricia is the name of this one, and quite impressively, as you can see, this is in BR Blue. Now really sadly, this particular model, this tooling, isn't currently in the Hornby range. It was first released in 2001, the model was, along with lots of other of their really good models. The Bullet Pacifics, the rebuilt Merchant Navy, I believe, came out in 2001 as well. So yeah, classic golden age. In those days, models were built how I think they ought to be built. Pretty good detail, but also fantastic performance, not too costly, and they're just great fun to handle and run. These days, of course, things have changed. Things are much more focused around detail and absolute realism, which is good in one way, but I do have to wonder whether things are as fun as they used to be. So yeah, for me, this sort of 2001 loco-driven era, of course, was probably my golden era, in my opinion. So yeah, this is the beautiful Hornby Princess. This version is weathered, which causes a bit of a divide in opinion. Now, I did have to wonder whether on such a beautiful livery such as BR Blue, whether or not the weathering is going to ruin things very slightly and make it look a little bit messy. So I actually set up a poll during the last time I showed this to find out what people thought about the weathering on this. Now, 45% said they liked it, 29% said they didn't like it, and 24% said they didn't mind. So there's no real clear opinion. Obviously most people did like the weathering, but quite a few people didn't as well. So that's just a little bit of food for thought. Anyway, enough rambling, let's get this out and we will see what it's like. Let's give it a try. So yeah, as I say, unfortunately these can't be bought new at the moment. They're not in the current Hornby range. I suppose if you're really lucky, you might be able to find somebody that's got one for new. But apart from that, yeah, generally second hand is the best place to go. And to be fair with you, that means that you can get a pretty good bargain with these. I think the BR Blue versions like this tend to fetch the most, certainly more than the more traditional maroon versions or Crimson Lake as it's known. But you can generally pick these up for less than £100. So take a look on Hatton's, take a look at eBay, see if you can pick yourself one up if you want to. I'll show you the end of the box on this particular version. This is R2448. It's a BR462 Princess Royal class, Lady Patricia, and yes, as I say, it's weathered. And you'll have to let me know in the comments, what do you think about the weathering? Generally, I do like the weathering on locos, but I think on such a beautiful livery such as BR Blue, I still have to wonder whether or not this is spoiling it very slightly. Anyway, as you can tell, the box is a little bit tatty on this one. It's not been looked after very well, but the seller did assure me that the loco inside was in sort of mint condition. And indeed it was when it arrived, and I serviced it up, and it ran perfectly on its very first try. Let's see if I can get this out. There we go. So you've got the card which sort of obscures the real model. So there you go. And then underneath here, there you can see is the model. And indeed there is a date on this operating and maintenance instructions booklet. I'll turn this round. There you go, you can see that yes, 05, so 2005. So yeah, not really that old, and when we're looking at the model, it might look a bit dated to you, considering that it's not that long ago, but really I think that's just a testament to how far we've come in that time. Anyway, let's open this up and have a look. So yeah, not an awful lot to see inside here. A little bit about lubrication, as always, removing the body, nothing about DCC fitting, unfortunately, but I suppose these instructions must have been written before DCC was a thing. But yeah, there is a decoder socket in this loco. So yeah, there we go, not too much to see there. There is also this detail pack, which is unopened, which I'm very pleased with. So it looks as though we have, let's see here, brake rigging, for the tender and the loco. There's one for the loco around there. We've got sets of steps there, which I think are painted, spare steps there, and also a coupling, which presumably goes on the front of the loco if you want to use it. So that's that. But for now then, let's get the model out and we will see what it's like. So tender first. With these, the loco and tender aren't permanently connected, although they do still have tender pickups. They've got like a contact system which connects the two. But there you have it, the tender in beautiful BR Blue with the weathering, which is very realistic, even if it's not that attractive. So yeah, very nice tender. We'll talk more about that in just a second. But now let's get the loco out then and we'll see what it's like. Very carefully lift this out. And yeah, it's quite a heavy thing. Quite noticeably, the chassis is made of metal. It's a very heavy chassis when I had this thing out, which is usually the case. But the bodywork is mostly made of plastic. There are a few metal components, such as the reverser rod or whatever, but most of it is made of plastic, the running board and such. However, with that being the case, it's not necessarily a light model. There's still plenty of weight to them, and in fact, if I remember rightly, these do haul quite a lot of coaches if you ask them to. So let me hold the tender with her then, so you can see them both together. So there you have it, the beautiful Princess Royal Lady Patricia in the beautiful weathered BR blue. Yeah, I really do love these, and what a good model these would make in the railroad range, can you imagine that? Okay, well, let's take a look at this up close, but first of all, here's a little bit of history on the Princess. Introduced in 1933 to the design of William Stanier, they were the first class of his four-cylinder Pacifics. The first two engines, Princess Royal and Princess Elizabeth, were disappointing and a little bit unsuccessful to start with. As a result, Stanier fitted them with new boilers containing 32 superheater tubes rather than only 16 as before. This instantly rectified the issues and the class was completed successfully after this. Princess Royal was the first of the class who was built in 1933 and withdrawn in 1962, but she was sadly scrapped. And 13 were produced in total, so not an awful lot compared to some classes, and only 2 of them survive in preservation, and sadly Lady Patricia isn't one of them. So there you have it then, a lovely up-close look at the Hornby Princess Royal class. Now obviously this tooling is coming up to about 20 years of age now, which means it isn't obviously the most modern loco in the world. And in a lot of places the age is starting to show a little bit on this model, as we're going to see later on. But also a lot of elements of this model really do shape up very, very nicely to modern standards. The quality, first of all, just holding this thing in your hand feels completely different to modern Hornby locos. It's very, very sturdy. You can almost play with this thing. Not quite, but you can almost give it to a kid and let them play with it and not risk any major damage. Also, the paintwork is extremely well done. If you look close up at the banding here on the boiler, you could easily believe that that was a 2018 paint job and not a 2005 paint job. It's been very, very nicely done. Okay, so let's look at some of the details then. Some good, some bad, but most quite attractive, as I'm sure you'll agree. So as I've said, yes, the paintwork is very nicely done, and we've also got quite a bit of lining along the lower running board here, as you can see, which is lovely. You've also got a little bit of lining on the steam chest there, which is nicely applied, as well as on the side of the cab. We've also got the classification, which is a 7P with this one, and the running number there, which is 46210. The weathering is also very nicely done. It's quite subtle, not too much in your face, which is, I think, important with quite a light livery such as BR Blue. It's a little bit patchy in places. For example, the lower firebox seems to have been missed. It looks pretty clean. I'm not sure if that would be the case in real life. I would have thought the sort of whole lower end of the loco would be completely ditched. So maybe Hornby just missed that with their weathering spray or whatever they use. But it's a relatively minor complaint, and it's not something that's very much noticeable. There's quite a lot in terms of separately fitted work as well. We've got this whistle, which appears to be made of plastic, unfortunately, but I think it's the only thing of note that is, because just in front of there you've got the safety valve arrangement there, which are all separately fitted and metal parts, and also the reverser rod assembly here is all made of metal and nicely weathered as well. Now you get a lot of 2018, 2017 models, recent models, which only have plastic reverser rods, so that is very, very good to see. The Lady Patricia nameplate is looking a little bit grubby there, but you can still read what it says, which is quite good. And the underframe is very nicely detailed as well. As you can see, even the chassis has quite a bit of riveting and detail going on, which is really, really good. And also there's a lot of detail fitted to the running board. You've got all manner of different pipes and containers and splashes and things, which are all very, very well done. Now the smoke box door is very nicely presented. You can see you've got the separately fitted handrail there, alongside the running number and the shed code. However, quite noticeably, the smoke box door is just a part of the moulding, which is a feature that would go out of fashion shortly after this model was released. However, it doesn't look all that bad, does it? Let's be honest here. And also the buffer beam is relatively nicely detailed with a pre-fitted vacuum pipe. And yes, this does have sprung buffers, although they don't spring all that easily because of the weathering, I assume. But yes, they do work if you're willing to push them a little bit. And you can also see the tops of the internal cylinders because, of course, the Princesses were 4-cylinder. So you've got the outside 2 and then the 2 which would be between the frames. So yeah, quite a powerful design. Now the cab is relatively nicely detailed, although the cab roof doesn't open or anything like that. The air intake there is firmly sort of set into that position. However, we do have glazed windows on the cab, which is a nice touch. Obviously, I think that was pretty much a given back then. However, inside the cab, despite there being quite a lot of moulded detail inside there, nothing is painted, which again is a feature that really gives away the age of this model, whereas other features don't. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. You can basically get a sense of the detail. I do quite like the pipework, by the way, underneath the cab. It's not painted as far as I can tell, although the weathering does make it stand out quite nicely. So yeah, there we go, a beautiful model. Whether or not you like the weathering, I think you'd have to agree that she is a very splendid looking model. And going at speed around the layout, hauling an express train, I'm not sure you'd notice most of the downfalls in terms of detail. So, you know, it's not too bad. It's not a great model for rivet counters, but for just casual hobbyists, I think it's a beautiful model. The tender is also very, very nice to look at. I think the weathering is a little stronger on the tender. I don't know about you. But yeah, it looks a little bit more pronounced, doesn't it? So yes, we've got the early crest, which is somewhat obscured by the weathering, but it's still very clear what it is nonetheless. And you've also got that beautiful lining, which just like on the Loco is very, very nicely applied. The underframe of the tender is relatively basic, although of course at the moment it doesn't have the brake rigging fitted. You could fit that if you wanted to, which would bring out the detail on the lower half of the tender. Up on top, the coal load is unfortunately a little bit dated and a little bit chunky looking, and sadly with this one it isn't removable, so it's not something that you can easily get rid of, although of course there are ways around that if you're really desperate to get rid of it. Around the back there's quite a bit of detail. Again, the weathering is very well pronounced around here, and you've got the general BR signage on the back of the tender there, which will include the tender water capacity and all that good stuff. And yet again, more sprung buffers and a separately fitted coupling hook and vacuum pipe. It's worth talking about the couplings on these because as you can see, they're not NEM, they are the sort of screw-on type. Again, NEM would come into fashion shortly after this model was released, but sadly there wasn't anything to be done for this. So yeah, dated in some areas, but still beautiful overall, but I think it's all going to come down once again to how well she performs. So let's get her down onto the track and we'll take a look. Okay, so there's Lady Patricia then down onto the line, and I'm going to do a bit of a slow speed test for you right now, but first of all, here's what she's going to be hauling. Now, here it's a case of coaches as far as the eye can see. I think this is 8 coaches here, and I don't often show rakes of 8 coaches or anywhere near that number really, so it really will be a big test of her pulling capabilities. But obviously, as a 4-cylinder Pacific, this Loco would have been very powerful in real life, so we will test that theory and see if she's as powerful in model form. Now, it's a bit of a sad story with this model because, as I say, she was made in 2005 and she spent well over a decade just sat in a box. You know, just a whole over 10 years just sat in a box, never run, probably not looked at that often. And just a few months ago, I bought this and serviced her up and brought her back into running order, and now she's performing for, you know, potentially thousands of people. So it's quite a happy ending to her little story. So anyway, here we go. Oh, I better talk about performance first. It's a very nice mechanism. 5-pole motor in the Loco. All of the wheels have proper bearings on them so that they run nice and smooth. Full tender pickups, DCC socket, beautiful performer. What more could you ask for in terms of performance? Well, let me show you. So here we are. This is a Loco first introduced nearly 20 years ago, and this particular model was produced in 2005. And just look at that. Can you see this? Let's go in for a close-up on those wheels. There we go. I've done my best with that. Oh, a bit faster there. Let's try it in reverse though. Let's see if she can do it in reverse. There we are. She's moving. My goodness. See what I mean? It's certainly nothing. There's certainly nothing new about superb performance. These Hornby Locos have been doing performance like this since 2001, and this is on DC, folks. This is not a chipped Loco. This is coming straight out of my HM2000. Absolutely brilliant. And just look at all those rods go. Oh man, I love it. I absolutely love it. Gorgeous. Right, let's couple up to the coaches and see if she can haul them. Here she comes now. Steadily does it. Very nice. Let me just get her focused in properly. That's better. Yeah, I mean, such a handsome, huge steam locomotive. What is there not to love, really, about the Princesses? And doesn't she look even more incredible just in that BR blue? Right, let's give this some juice then and see how it goes. Right, 8 coaches, folks. Ooh, that was a bit dodgy. Sounds actually as though something might have derailed. Has it? Yep, we've got one off. Let me just put it back on. Right. Now I've fixed that. She seems to be accelerating nicely. Let's speed her up. And yes, she can manage 8 coaches. That's incredible. Okay, well, I'm sticking with the theme of LMS Pacifics today, so you'll have to keep your eyes peeled to see if there's an odd one out. But first of all, on the outside line, I've got another Princess. This is actually the same model. It's just in the Crimson Lake, or Maroon, if you want to call it that. I think this was originally a train set model. This is an ex-train set logo. Can you imagine getting one of these in a train set? What a magical experience that must have been. But yeah, she's got a nice rake of LMS coaches, and she is actually DCC fitted. So as you can see, a nice gentle acceleration there. And then on the inside line, I've got one of Hornby's original Princess locos. This is from the original Princess tooling that Hornby/Triang did, and that one is Princess Elizabeth with some blood encrusted coaches. Okay, enjoy the running session, and we will see how this girl gets on with all of these coaches around the layout. Let's give that a try. And just look at all of those coaches. Well, when she comes by, look at this. There's definitely 8, count them if you want. And she just does it as though she hasn't got a load at all. Admittedly, the start was a little bit wheel slippy, but now that she's got a bit of momentum, she's managing it fine. And of course, the LMS Maroon version is also extremely handsome, so you'll have to let me know which one do you prefer, BR Blue or LMS Maroon. Ooh, what an interesting choice that's going to be. I think mine has to be the BR Blue version, although the LMS Maroon or Crimson Lake is really, really smart too. There we are, a little bit of vintage for you. Any Triang fans out there should be happy now. Great runner she is. Okay, let's watch carefully then, see if there's any wheel slip. Oh, very slightly, but it's quite a nice wheel slip, isn't it? It's a kind of a display of power wheel slip. I think that's the better kind. And yeah, that does look a lot of coaches, doesn't it? Awful lot of Pullmans there. Absolutely love it. There's just something magical about the princesses, isn't there? Without a doubt. Oops. Sorry about that. Slightly shoddy camera work there. Went out of focus there, but hopefully we'll do better with... I think that one's Elizabeth, is it? I forget. Somebody let me know in the comments, or I could even look. Hey, that would be easier. So here are my ratings then for the Hornby Princess. First of all, detail. I think we've got to admit that even though she is absolutely beautiful, don't get me wrong, the detail obviously isn't up to modern standards, although I've given it a sort of middle of the road 3 out of 5. Power though, as you can see, she's managing those 8 coaches astonishingly easily with no slowdowns on the inclines or anything like that, so it has to be a 5 out of 5 on power. And also, you've seen her slow speed, you've seen how good she can crawl. It has to also be a 5 out of 5 there. Now, quality, I think I might have been a tiny bit generous here because obviously the loco isn't die-cast, it is all sort of plastic with a few plastic components. But just the way it feels in your hands has won this one over for me. It is so solid, it runs so faultlessly. I think the quality has to be a 5 out of 5, despite some of the minor sort of drawbacks. But then again, I think I've deducted marks for those on the detail front, so I think that's fair enough. Value then, now obviously you can only really pick these up second hand or new if you're lucky. So the general price for this is about £80 to £100, although the BR Blue version does sort of fetch a little bit more sometimes. It really depends on the seller, to be honest with you, but generally I think £100 or thereabouts for one of these is pretty good. So 4 out of 5 there. Overall then, that is 8.40 out of 10, a very respectable score, and into the ranking she goes at 12th, just above the Railroad A4 and below the Bachmann D11. Yeah, very, very lovely this one. Oops. Thank you, Mr. Triang. You certainly spoilt that shot good and proper. Never mind. I tell you what though, I keep getting tempted to film the maroon version rather than the BR Blue. So I am very, very fond of it, for sure. It's happened again. That Triang locos keeps stealing the show. Alright folks, well that will just about do it for today. If you're interested in picking one of these up, I have included a link in the description, but do bear in mind that most of the available ones will be second hand these days. Now, people have been asking me recently to show the Wall of Fame again, and basically I do need to. I'll show you a quick look now, but I really need to make a video all about it at some point, because as you can see, it's filled up quite a lot, and it goes all the way down there. So there's an awful lot to see where the Wall of Fame is concerned, but I'm still taking photos and putting them up there, so if you want to send me a picture or a drawing or anything you like, just email it to me. My email address is in the description and I'll put that up on the wall. But for now folks, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed seeing these beautiful princesses, specifically the BR Blue version, Lady Patricia. And for now I think that's all I've got to say, so thanks for your company today. Hope you enjoyed the video and I will see you all very, very soon. Cheers everybody.